teacher has some immediate information on our students' basically foundational reading skills. Letters and sounds, sight words, fluency, which is how fluently they read English or Spanish. We also have, for language arts, the STAR reading test, which is a reading comprehension. It can give you a measure that's either a grade level equivalent or a more like scale score, a lecture score. Then we have our trimester assessments. Those same tests are then given 3 times a year. Now, you might notice that up there it says Eureka end of modules. See Eureka matrix. That would be the next one. What we did this year for mathematics is that we are using for our local assessments actually the assessments that are embedded in the curriculum program. We didn't make up our own. To be honest with you, there has been a little bit of controversy in our district about benchmark assessments. There was a time when we used the same assessment at every trimester, and it was at end of, if you were a 3rd grader, you took an assessment that had end of the year expectations, and you took it at the end of the 1st trimester, the 2nd trimester, the 3rd trimester, and it was the very same test to measure progress. Many people feel that's very, very effective. We had teachers who objected to it, so actually last year, the last 2 years, we had teachers identify according to standards, test items that were pulled from the test bank, and those were our benchmarks. And those were, and I'll be honest with you, not very well received from the Inspect test bank. And so this year, and it was felt that, understandably, that the test items didn't necessarily reflect instruction, which is why this year we proposed to teachers, and this was gladly accepted, that the math local assessments would be not another test to give, but the very tests that are related to the program you're teaching. So definitely tied to instruction. And furthermore, very much reflective of the increased rigor and the increased depth of knowledge of the Common Core state standards, specifically in obviously, in this case, mathematics. So what you can see up there, though, is that all of those modules, those numbers, M1, M2, M3, M4, those refer to modules. This program is divided into something called modules, not units. And they...
May I interrupt you? Does that mean that the release questions are not used anymore? By release questions, I mean, like for example, when we had the SCESDs, the state would release certain questions
those were
that were no longer used. Does that mean we don't use that as a valuable teaching tool?
Oh, that would be a teaching tool, but it's not a local assessment that's used to monitor student progress. But those are definitely, and the Smarter Balance, our new state assessment, actually does have release questions that are used and can be used, and there's actually an entire suite of, what do I want to say, assessment items that are related to the Smarter Balance program, but this is definitely separate. These very much mirror those types of questions, but they're tied to the content of the various modules. But what this visual means to point out is that we couldn't say, okay, let's give this end of module assessment the last week of October, because the grade levels are in all different places. So we customized, and this was not an easy process. We customized the end of module assessment target date so that it would reflect instruction and not be an arbitrary date where we said, okay, everybody has to be here because it's the end of the trimester and you need to get ready for this one part-time. Okay? So Then we did have to come up with these dates so we would have the data to look at to measure student progress. We created these documents for every grade level, which show the target dates. You have to remember this is our first year in this program, and it's very rigorous. It's very demanding of our students and also of our teachers. It's a different way of teaching and a different way of learning. The content is also different. So at the recommendation of the creator, the publisher, Eureka, you can see there these paragraphs for the modules begin by saying, if pacing is a challenge, consider the following modifications and omissions. So because this is the first year and it is so difficult, we pass on to all of our teachers the recommendations of how some lessons may be able to be consolidated or admitted. You'll also see that what we did, actually if I go to this one, you can see, for example, in grade, okay, we'll take grade 5, that we are giving an end of module 5 test, but actually in grade 5 there's 6 modules. We knew that our teachers were not going to be able to teach a module a day and get through the entire year program. No district is proposing that for the first year of implementation. So we are not teaching that last module. We are dividing up that time and ending and adding additional days of instruction to each module. So for 5th grade, this happens in 5th grade. In module 1, there are 19 lessons, but we had that be 30 days to give them additional time to instruct. This is at the beginning of the school year. So it's a new program.
For a minute?
Mm-hmm.
Is that 30 teaching days,
Yes.
30 instructional days,
Instructional
not
days.
30 calendar
No,
days?
30 instructional days for the 19 lessons. And then for module 2, which ended in December, we also built in, they have 29 lessons, 35 days with 5 more. And so we did purposefully, intentionally, built in 22 additional instructional days into these 2 modules to make sure that it wasn't people madly dashing to the end to try to get assessments done. But still, it's definitely true that is going to need, not everyone finishes, and there needs to be continued teaching. Yes?
So if teachers in classes start to fall behind, I mean, what I'm hearing complaints about is that the stuff isn't getting taught before they're getting tested. Is that kind of what we're hearing?
That was a complaint that we did hear, that the students are getting tested. And I'm trying to show that we are trying to provide. Do we say then that, well, everyone tests them when that particular class is done, and then we don't have any, what's the word I want to use, similar data. So we can't say that this is where the 5th graders are at this point in time. And we do need to have that kind of data. We have already eliminated 1 module. I don't know how many additional areas of instruction or key standards we would want to eliminate.
What is it? Sorry.
I was just going to say, is that because we have a state obligation to turn in data, or is that data that the district just wants to gather? I mean, is it something we have control over ourselves, or is this something we are obligated to the state?
We are obligated to turn in an annual report as a program improvement district that discusses what is shown on our local assessment program for student progress and how we monitor that. For our LCAP, we have to have metrics for each one of our activities. And a lot of our activities are tied to student achievement in math and student achievement in language arts. So we have to internally have the data to look at student progress.
So in regard to scope and sequence, can we potentially have some classes in one grade level cover the material before the testing while others do not? And can we potentially have some schools covering the material while others are not and being tested?
I think it's, yes, And those are all potentially possibilities, yeah. And it has definitely happened with teachers. I've had reports of teachers that have finished the module and then they've called to find out, can I go ahead and test? And it's like, yes, if you're ready, you don't have to wait to the particular test. We say here that the end of module assessment here needs to be completed by September 30th. If a teacher finishes early, they're welcome to do it. If they haven't finished, we are telling teachers, go ahead and test them on what you taught and we'll find out where they are. And that doesn't mean though that you don't, they need to take a look at the high priority standards, and if they didn't get to that, then to definitely try to find a way that they can cycle those in.
Are there interventions then if we find that one class is lagging behind or one school is lagging behind? Are there interventions in place to push them along so they're ready on testing day? All of our professional development days that we had this year was specifically designed to give teachers opportunities to open up the modules, to look at the math content, to anticipate, to plan, to see what are going to be the difficult areas for my students, and then plan accordingly to meet those needs. Ms. Dilger, Linda, last Friday and Thursday had grade level sessions at, we contracted with her for, where she met with grade level groups, and they did just that for the next module that they're working at, because we are trying to support teachers. We also do have instructional coaches that are available. This is a very rigorous program, and we definitely have things in place to try to support teachers, to assist them with their instruction.
Last board meeting, we had a teacher from Mission Park School come and talk to us, a fifth grade teacher. And then over winter break, we received an email from another fifth grade teacher from, I think she was in Tivitat School. So we're talking about schools on they're not colleagues, they're on two different sides of the district who both voiced the same concern, and that is that there is a module that there's an end of the module test that they're supposed to be giving, and they haven't reached that module, and yet they're required to give the test. And it appears, I'm just curious, because it appears that they are giving a test that they know their students aren't going to be able to do. And both of those teachers at fifth grade are saying there's so much backfill that they're having to go to do that to really feel that they are doing a really good job on each module, they're backfilling, and it's taking a lot longer than maybe those extra 10 or however many days they need. I'm just concerned because I'm looking then at your data here, and those students that are at or above target, that looks pretty sad, and it seems to be going down as you move to the next module. So I'm thinking the data reinforces what these teachers are saying. So really, is that giving us any information? I mean, are we getting, what data are we getting?
I'm going to point out something to you about the data. This is actually, because all the illustrations here is from fifth grade. And I think if you look at the first line that says number assessed, you see that in module 1, we have scores for 1,055 students. For module 2, and I took this screenshot last week, we only had 438 student scores entered. So it's a different size of a group, and this actually shows that there's a very nice increase that's happening so far. You want to see your students at steps 3 and 4. Step 3 and 4 means they're proficient. And of the totals that we have here, in the module 1, there were 208 students out of 1,055. that scored proficient, which is 19%. So far, from the data that we had for Module 2, even though the numbers are smaller, 82 and 68, of the total, it's up to 34%. On our last SBAC test, our Smarter Balance test that we took in the spring, these same students in 4th grade were only 12% proficient. So we're actually showing, so far, looking at the particular content of these modules, that our students are better prepared right now than they were last year.
Yeah, I kind of made the leap on the numbers assessed that the reason they went down is those teachers said, I'm not testing these kids, they're not ready to take the test. So I looked at those as, you know, kids that would have not taken, that would have not done well, so the teachers made the decision not to. And that could be wrong, it could be a wrong assumption, but I just was concerned that the number of students that were assessed went down because those teachers said, I can't do this to these kids.
I assume that they didn't enter their data yet. I didn't assume that they had not done the assessment. Okay, because they were assessed in December.
Then I'd like to see data that was more consistent with the, the 1,000 students tested and the 1,000 students tested.
It just really wasn't doing that.
Yeah,
So
because I don't think that, Lori, I just don't feel like those percentages are real. I just think that that's based on the 438 kids who were ready to take that test.
I agree, and one of the things that we need to do for you as a district with our LCAP is to make sure that we give you regular reports about the student progress. And so I'm giving you this introduction to our system of assessments, a program that we have in place, and then we will be bringing back to you, because we haven't done any student achievement data here except for the initial Smarter Balance results in the fall. So we will be coming back to you with complete data. This was to show some sort of growth, and so there were only 2 tests. I did go ahead with the incomplete data.
I'd like to ask one more question. I don't mean to be offensive when I ask this question, but teachers are not, these results are not used to prejudge a teacher's abilities.
No. Teachers are not evaluated on the
whether it be at the
basis.
district level or at the local level, at the school level. Am I correct?
No, but what it can tell us, for example, after you have more data that's complete, is are there particular grade levels that are struggling? Okay, and so we can look at trends as a whole, not at teachers as a whole. Teachers look at their own data. They look at their data in grade level groups, in their grade level collaborations, and they assist one another with best strategies. Because it is, and this is a new way of teaching and a new way of learning, and our teachers need a lot of support. And we're very lucky that we did have last year in the math grant, we had teachers that piloted Eureka Math, this very same program, that are at all the sites that really are coming through as being instructional leaders for math. And they're not official coaches, but they are certainly supporting colleagues.
I just feel like anytime that you tag the word assessment and you're using it to drive instruction or you're using it to find trends or whatever, I feel like teachers feel the pressure to make sure that they're providing what you need. And I think it conflicts oftentimes with the actual instruction because they also want their students to master whatever module or they want them to really have a firm grasp so that the next year when they move on they'll be just that much smarter, and then the next year, and then it builds on. I think that in the primary grades like kindergarten, first, second, those kids are at a huge advantage because that's what they're starting off. Your poor 5th and 6th graders, you've just turned you've turned a huge shift on little ones that I feel like assessment is a scary thing to judge at this point in time. I mean, I think that, you know, I think that, I love Common Core, I love what we're doing with it, but I just feel that the assessments are putting undue pressure on teachers to rush these kids through something that they have a really beautiful opportunity to master a new way of thinking. And if you could get that in, maybe the next year would be that much easier. I mean, I don't know, I'm just.
Isn't this just kind of nature of the beast? You know,
It
if you're
is.
gonna change the whole system, you know, you've got, math is something that builds on what you learned before, right? And so you've got a rigorous program, you're starting off with the young ones, they're gonna learn more. And then all of a sudden, you've got kids who are in 5th grade or in a whole new fish out of water situation. I mean, it doesn't seem like we should roll it out at different grade levels, you know, like
Well, I think
adopt
that
it
would
over
be-
time or something like that, instead of systematically changing on everybody all at once. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
using it as an assessment tool.
So
that's
I'm
a
just
little
going
more-
to interject something here. We're held accountable,
That's what I wanted.
and you're held accountable, and I'm held accountable for the achievement of our students. It is our #1 mission and vision for our students. And the new standards are extremely rigorous. This particular program, I've seen it in action. It's different. It's the way I was taught, actually, math, but, you know, I love it. But it is different. If you have not taught this before, it's going to be difficult for you as a teacher to teach. Our students are not accustomed to this. But let me just tell you, kids are resilient, and they actually, I've seen the students really master the challenge of really moving forward with teachers that I've gone into a few classrooms that I think are just absolutely stellar. I go out in the hallway and I start jumping up and down and clapping with the principal and say, oh my God, I've been dying to see something like this all day long. And it's magical, because students are responding, they are becoming critical thinkers in the way that they're being challenged. To look at mathematics and the solution for a problem in multiple ways. And we've been teaching our kids for a long time the rote types of mathematics. You know, get fluency on the facts. You still need that fluency piece, by the way. But this is a huge change. But bottom line is we are accountable. And we're going to be accountable on our LCAP for our metrics to measure where our students are. For me, the measurement and assessments tell me a story. They tell me where our students are, the gap areas are, and where I need to put. And I think Francisco asked that key question about intervention. You know, so this gives us an idea of where do we need to provide those additional interventions, whether it's during the school day or after school. It's going to give us a huge indication, I think, where we may need to put efforts for summer school. And I think it's an adjustment in growing pains into a very different way of teaching mathematics. It just is. It's different. And it's a lot different, I think, than some of the things that we're doing with literacy. And I think that assessment is how we internalize the word assessment. Is it, are we using assessment for learning? And if we are, then we're actually looking at that results and telling us how are we going to strengthen through an additional instruction what the students really need and what we as the district need to provide. And I just want to say that when we look at our math scores in general from the past years, they're pretty bad, they're pretty low. And especially as you get into what I call the intermediate grades, the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And when you have, the scores that are low, then this type of teaching is even going to be more difficult, and how do we fill those gaps? And I think what I've seen from Lori's is that we're trying to provide in the pacing schedule what I heard and read, because Linda, when did you do your Eureka math?
Thursday and Friday, Augusta.
So I read the comments from the teachers, and most of what I read from those teachers were you were giving them actual opportunities to figure out which portions of those modules did not need to be taught. So, you know, in her 2-day grade level by grade level presentations, she's, I think, listening to the voice of the teachers, providing them options, looking and strengthening that. And teachers were saying, well, what did I find most valuable? Well, I found, oh, Linda told me I could leave this out, I could do this, I could rearrange this. You know, so there was some excitement in the comments I read around, and you can certainly get up and tell
I
us
just want to say,
anything
when
else.
it's math that we have never in America taught or even learned when we were in school. So a lot of teachers, especially in the upper grades, are learning math differently, and then they have to turn around and teach it. So it's a stress on all of us. These California standards were implemented in 2010. It's 2016. We're on board, and we're making. It's our hope. It's America's hope. These standards, and I'm excited that your district is doing such a good job of beginning it. Second year for most teachers, and the second year teachers are having no issues at this time. You know, and the ones that I saw last week, they were excited. They learned the math. They felt comfortable to move on. So I think the professional development is the key.
And I just wanted to say, can you speak next, is that we have provided additional opportunities for professional development as each module is being rolled out. And that was another one of the comments that the teachers did ask for. Are we going to have professional development time for the next module? So as each module is being in August, they receive their professional development about the modules that we're going to be taught. And we've been trying to provide that levels of support. I got to tell you, I've seen that being provided consistently across a district, you know, when you need those interval times. So it's difficult, I agree. I know it's not easy, and I know that context matters. What happens at one classroom is not necessarily going to mirror what's going to happen in another classroom. So, you know, sometimes this pacing guide doesn't work for every single classroom. It would be, you know, we'd be fools to say that would, but, you know, we're trying to build in those extra times for those adjustments to be made as needed.
And we still give the smarter balance tests in the spring.
The window is going to be after spring break,
Right
so
after.
they'll start in April.
And then in April, they also have a end of module test.
Well, they will have the Smarter Balance test, that's a test, is the math going to be done over 2 days?
Yes.
Yeah, the students will take it over 2 days and then they're done. And then if they do have a module assessment, yeah, we would collect that information on that. But that's it's like a 6, depends on the length of the module, but it's not as comprehensive.
I completely embrace the Eureka Math. I embrace the new way of teaching math and the new way of learning math, and I love it. I love it. That's not my concern. My concern is the over-assessing of, I understand benchmarks to know where the kids are, so you know if you're pacing. But I don't think you have to ask a teacher in February at 5th grade, who's now going to administer the end of module 3 test, who's just wrapping up module 2 and starting module 3. I don't think you have to say to them, is this going to work for your, I just feel like maybe, I don't know. I'm shocked at the amount of testing between language arts and math. When you look at it, if you just look at 3rd grade. My God, 3rd grade. It's almost every month they're doing a test.
Well,
and I'm sorry. What I've been doing is, I'm a victim of watching the media and listening to trends and things, and I think everybody is feeling we're just testing kids all the time. And this example of 5th grade teachers who are saying, we're giving a test that our kids haven't even learned how to do yet, I think that's an example of how you're just testing. So, there's just a lot of testing going on here, Lori. And that's why I want to know, what was our obligation to the state? Is this just for our our own information because we do have to show improvement? Or do teachers have a little flexibility in?
Well, what we
And
did,
administration.
and I agree with you, we have to, it's not all, we have to be careful of what we assess, how we assess, but what's most important is what we do with what the data tells us, which was why when we looked at our math benchmarks this year, the only assessment we're asking teachers to give is what's with the program. We didn't add on another layer, another assessment and say, okay, in addition to giving what you would give students, as of course after you finish the module, you're also going to give at the end of every trimester this other test.
Yeah.
So we got rid of those, and so we only went with what was tied to the program, which we felt teachers would be giving anyway. So it wasn't adding assessment. And we did eliminate 1.5 modules per grade level to try to stretch out the time some more, to give them the additional time. If there is, I encourage teachers, and it is hard. I mean, it is going to be hard, and I know from last year we did a survey of the teachers in the grant that taught Eureka Math, that at the beginning of the year, yeah, it took them 2 days to do a lesson. But by the end of the year, they're reporting 1 day. For most lessons, some days are going to be, some lessons are going to be really tough. So it is finding the groove or getting into learning the math and learning the program, and then also learning that, yes, we are telling teachers, as Linda was saying, empowerment, you are empowered, you are saying, okay, this is less essential, I'm going to eliminate that. We do have, from back in our Reading First days, teachers have been trained that it's cover to cover. You don't skip things. You keep teaching. You keep teaching, and that's why we gave them the Eureka target dates with their recommendations. If pacing is a challenge, consider omitting, consider consolidating, because you're not going to get through it all in the first year or the first 2 years.
For the public?
Yeah, I just thought you might want a teacher's perspective, a sixth grade teacher's perspective, and what I am doing. This is my second year of using Engage New York.
I'm sorry, could you please go up to the
Yes, sure. My name is Diane Cunanan. I am a sixth grade teacher at Laurelwood. I am active in math. I have been for years. I have done cognitive guided instruction out of UC Santa Cruz for 5 years. So I have used this kind of math that Engage New York teaches with Common Core. My reality is that the kids I have this year, more than half were level 1 coming from 5th grade, meaning they did not have any understanding of 5th grade math concepts and procedures. I am backtracking them, trying to fill in what they need. I am working with all the kids, I'm differentiating. Therefore, I just completed before vacation Module 2. I gave the benchmark Module 2, inputted my data. I should have been at Module 3. I did not. I will not test my children in Module 3 until they are done, because I'm not going to enter more zeros. As it was, I had 5 students who gave up after the 3rd question. Literally, they would not complete the test. And that is my reality. I am not going to put a test on them that I know that they will fail, that we haven't even covered the information. So I just want you to know that's where I stand, and I think I'm a good teacher. I think my students gain more than a year's growth in the year that they have me, and that's my input. Thank you.
Gabriela Perez, teacher at Bishop Park. My input is, I totally agree with you. I like the new program. Given the fact that the Common Core standards were issued in 2010, as we just heard, I think it would have been sensible to start right after that, as soon as Engage New York came aboard to start with kindergarten and first grade maybe together, train those teachers in the program, and then roll it up a year at a time, and then we would be at target today, and our students would have the required prerequisites to go on with it. In the upper grades, it is definitely a challenge. The students come completely unprepared, and not just unprepared in the thinking skills that are necessary for Eureka Math. They also come completely unprepared in terms of multiplication, division, even addition with regrouping or subtraction with regrouping. I mean, I've never seen it as bad as I've seen it this year. I mean, they argue why 2 plus 4 isn't 7. And then you try to teach 5th grade Eureka Math. So it's a challenge for sure. And another problem is that we do not have any remediation for math at all. So the kids that are discussing why 2 plus 4 isn't 7, or they want it to be 7 and we have to tell them it isn't, there's no remediation for that. So I need to try to filter in to remediate at that kind of a level, plus teaching the 5th grade math, which of course it does take way longer than a lesson a day. And the 5 extra days that are calculated in, that's nice, but it doesn't help in terms of how much more time we actually need in order to make it happen. So at our school, we then agreed, well, if we have to test, so we didn't test the week, necessarily the week it was supposed to be tested, we tested before the break, but still not being through the module. So when I did my master's degree in teaching, one of the most important prerequisites was that you test what you have taught in order to give that test any kind of validity. And what we're doing right now, and I'm not the only one, and Mission Park is not the only school that is faced with this. We're testing somewhere in the vicinity of the testing date there, and we're testing not being through the material, just because we have to meet a deadline. And then we have agreed at our site, or in our grade level at least, okay, we'll start with the next module, because if we don't, then we're behind with the next module. So we're creating more and more holes that way, and it's not benefiting the kids. And in my opinion, any kind of data that you're achieving that way is not valid data, because you're judging the outcome of those tests for children that haven't been taught the entire module. And especially in module 2 for 5th grade, it primarily tested the second half of module 2. So if you only got through the first part of module 2, that group was definitely up the street.
I think we have one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see.
Hi, Frank Garden, Mission Park School. I thought I'd step up just to offer some perspective from the parents' side, because I think I may be the only parent here tonight. But I want to thank Mrs. Perez for bringing this up, this topic up at the last board meeting. I'm glad we were able to follow up and have this discussion about Common Core. As a parent, I've had a difficult transition to Common Core. And I guess one of the perks of running for office is I got to talk to hundreds of people in the community to kind of gauge the pulse of how people feel about Common Core. And you should know that it's generally negatively received. A lot of people would question me about where I stand on Common Core, and my standard response was, well, it's the law of the land now. It's not something that the school board necessarily has a whole lot of control over. But I would redirect the conversation back to, we need to ensure that our teachers are supported and have the resources they need so that our children can pick up on this skill set as well. I wasn't taught that way. So when my daughter Lacey asks for help, thank God my wife was taking the lead on that, because it's something that I struggle with. And I'm certainly not asking for teachers to convene a class of parents at nighttime to teach us how to do Common Core, because they direct us to some YouTube videos which are helpful. And I do know, though, that Lacey, as a second grader, struggles a lot. lately with Common Core Math. And it doesn't feel like there's a place where she can go to get extra help. I know with the Title I funds that were allocated to Mission Park in the last school year, a portion of those funds were voted on to use for homework help after school. Now, I did have a parent come up to me just before winter break, and he had recognized me as somebody who's pretty civic-minded, I guess, so he thought I could do something about this. He was pretty upset that the homework help club had been canceled. And I haven't gotten the chance to follow up with him to tell him to go to the school site council and voice his opinion on how the funding is allocated. But we need those interventions, as Mr. Estrada said, for our kids so they have a place to go, because I don't feel like Lacey at this point has a place where she can go for that extra help. My daughter Melissa, she's a 6th grader, so she hasn't been brought up with Common Core all these years, Common Core Math. So a lot of times when she misses or doesn't understand a certain concept in class, rather than feel embarrassed and stand up and ask a question, she'll come home, doesn't know how to do it, starts crying about it. And those are the nights that we have difficulty. So that's just my perspective from a parent. For what it's worth, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm wondering as more, is there someone who can give us some advice on whether or not, I mean, what seems aberrant to everybody is that we're testing kids on something they haven't learned. Does that seem like the point that we're getting stuff up, you know? And what good is the result of a test like that anyway? I mean, isn't there some way to admit a test that's, well, kids shouldn't be subjected to that. That's my feeling. Okay, is there something legally that says that we have to test kids on stuff that they haven't learned to keep up with something? Or, I know we're having to be accountable and all, but can we be accountable by how far they get during the year? Once they improve or anything? Is there some way to avoid that, is what I'm trying to get to. Do we as a board want to give some kind of direction as to?
Well, I take the direction from the teachers. Yeah, I mean, I think it's ridiculous to teach or to test somebody on something they've not had. You know, that is ridiculous, but
Is it necessary?
we're accountable for progress, so we have to measure something.
Yeah, well, that was the
Yeah.
question. Is there
Yeah.
another way to show progress rather than a pacing schedule? I mean, how many modules you get through, how many, I mean, I don't know. Linda, I mean, I don't know. Is there?
You know, it's about equal access. I worked with teachers last week that were on the pacing schedule, and when I asked them, are you having any problems? And they said, well, no, but I'm kind of concerned about this, and I'm gonna go back and teach this, do I have time to do that? And that's what we sat down and did. So it is, you know, the professional development, like I said, just talking to other teachers, they like that with, where are you? And really doing it as a district, the way the district has been providing these in-services is crucial. It's, you know, and like Diana said, her kids weren't ready because the 5th grade teacher didn't do it. So we've got to start doing this and give kids equal access. If it's happening in one 5th grade class or one 3rd grade class, doesn't it have to be in another? And I'm throughout the whole county. We're doing Engage New York throughout most of the county. And I'll stand up so I'll be loud because, anyway. I was in a class the week before Christmas break doing a walkthrough, and it's not this district. It was a 4th grade teacher that they were showcasing. They were in Module 1, Lesson 7. That means 7th day of the school year in December. That terrified me. What were those kids getting that they practice a suicide thinking they don't know the math, so I'm not going to start the Module 1? You know, so I'm just thinking we've got to see where the kids are, meet them both ways. We don't want kids crying, we don't want teachers crying. This is a growing year. This is going to be hard at first, and I think as we keep going, keep to the, you know, the way we're supposed to be doing things, we need to have some kind of guide and some kind of assessment to see where kids are and where to put the monies when you start redoing your LCAP next year. Where do we need to put the monies for intervention? What type of intervention? What's that going to look like? It's all learning. These assessments are for learning, not of learning. We're not assessing kids. We're assessing what we need to do to help all kids. So looking at trends and things. So, you know, we have to do something, and by federal law, PI, you have to do the assessments. And these are like the end of the chapter test, the end of the module test. We didn't want to create a whole nother test, because teachers always give the end of the module test. Now, if we need to go back and look at the pacing guide, it's already been revised twice. I've worked with some teachers already and sat in on you and looked at the critical areas of instruction. You know, what critical areas for every grade level do kids have to master to be proficient on the smarter balance? So that's why we can eliminate some things, and again, we do this at the professional development, then we'll put it out, and Ron's been putting on his website the revamping of the pacing guide. Lee's been working with the math grant. I think hearing all this is good information, but you know, we're going to continue with helping. We will do this through professional development and just meeting with the teachers. It will happen. We'll make it
At
work.
this point, I'd like to know from the board, would you like further information, where do we want to go so we can bring closure to this discussion? We can certainly bring it back at another time. Do you want to do a study session on mathematics?
No,
An assessment?
I'd like to see it when you get all the data for the second module. And
Yeah.
I think that would be a piece of information. Then we can see, is it in fact improving, or, you know, are we going down? I think what Linda said about the fact that these assessments are more to look at the program and to see that we're, you know, what we're doing, I think that's, I can live with assessments if we're assessing to better our program. But if we're assessing to see student growth, I can't live with that, because I can't see testing a child on something they have not been exposed to and saying, well, that's the sum total of what you can do, because they haven't. I mean, that's just so unfair. So I can't get behind that. But if you're looking at it to improve your program and to, you know, maybe further your goals of professional development or help guide us as to how to spend money, then absolutely, I can buy assessment there. I don't need to hear any more about that.
I can also share with you, I think, a broader audience comments from the professional development results, so that, you know, is multiple voices being heard, and what that might be helpful in what information you're putting together.
I would appreciate that, yes.
Okay, so
Mr. Strunk?
So when are we testing in the year? Is it May? Is it May when we're giving the
State
test?
Yeah, well, it's a large window, and it will begin in April, and it will end in May. So students are.
Everything has been supposedly covered by the time that the testing is taken?
No. No,
I mean,
it
that's
won't
the
be, it
ideal,
can't be.
that's the utopia that.
That's utopia. We could test them the last day of school and they would all be calm. That would happen though, but no, they're, which is, when we look at eliminating, we do need to understand, but our students are in the same boat as every other student. I mean, so that's an level playing field. Maybe that was. But it is that all students, all districts begin their testing for the most part in April and it goes through May. So the students have the same amount of instruction.
Yeah. See, like I'm with Amy. I believe assessments have value. However, I do believe that we as a board should look into what we can do to improve the situation so that the pacing, the scope and sequence is, so that everyone is on par. Everyone is there. I know that's a very difficult thing